Along Jill and Chris's nightmarish journey through the Spencer mansion, we face a myriad of abominations created by Umbrella, all of varying sizes, shapes and danger levels. Along the way, we can also find many notes and research files that detail the chilling creation of these creatures, from T-virus infected zombies to giant snakes and spiders, to even the infamous Tyrant. This game features a large variety of interesting and unique enemies, and today I wanted to take a peek behind the curtain and look into the origins of every single creature in Resident Evil Remake. In this video, I'll be detailing absolutely everything, from how they were created, to how they behave, and even how you can survive them. Without any further delay, let's begin. Before we dive into the individual monsters, it's important to understand what created them in the first place, and that all starts with the progenitor virus. This ancient virus was discovered by Umbrella in a rare West African flower known as the Stairway to the Sun. The flower was capable of drastically altering the host's DNA, sometimes granting immense strength or even immortality, but more often than not, it led to a quick and painful death. The progenitor virus itself is also believed to be hundreds of millions of years old. Umbrella quickly saw the potential to exploit this discovery. By combining the progenitor virus with leech and various other animal DNA, they created a powerful new strain, the T-virus. When injected into a human host, the T-virus causes severe mutations, including rotten flesh, loss of higher brain power, and uncontrollable aggression. In short, it turns people into zombies. But Umbrella didn't just test it on humans, they infected animals as well, resulting in some of the most grotesque and deadly bioweapons ever conceived. Originally, the T-virus was meant to eliminate the need for large standing armies, replacing soldiers with controllable BOWs, aka bioorganic weapons. It was a twisted business model designed to make Umbrella rich through war profiting. But over time, the focus shifted towards creating organisms that could survive extreme trauma, and remain alive even after organ failure and severe brain damage. And so, with the T-virus perfected, Umbrella began testing it across the Spencer mansion, and now, it's time to examine the horrifying results. Let me now break down every single creature that lurks inside the Spencer mansion, starting of course with the most iconic of all, the standard T-virus zombie. The inhabitants of the Spencer mansion have all been affected by the T-virus that Umbrella was working on in secret, and their lives will be changed forever. These creatures feature all the parts of a human, however their skin is decrepit and is almost falling apart as they move about. Speaking of how they move, these zombies move at a very slow but steady pace towards you, moaning and groaning as they do. Across the mansion, we can find many notes that delve into the transformation process of a human becoming a zombie. Some of the key notes to include here are the Keeper's Diary, which details the slow and gradual process of an Umbrella employee turning into a zombie, which I've already actually done a full video on, so if you want a more in-depth look at that specific note, check that video out. There's also a suicide note we can find in the residence, which shows how paranoid the Spencer mansion inhabitants were about becoming a zombie, with the writer resorting to suicide as to not become one of these monsters. We can also find the researcher's will note. This note is the last message from an Umbrella researcher and acts as his final goodbye to his wife. In this note, we can see more details about T-virus zombies. The researcher describes the T-virus like this: the virus robs its victims of their humanity, forcing them in their sickness to seek out and destroy life. And that's honestly the best description you could give for these zombies. Much like the Keeper's Diary and the suicide note, we see this researcher doesn't have a happy end. He has been infected with the T-virus, and he's backed into a corner with many flesh-hungry zombies banging down his door. His last resort to not become one of them is suicide. I am infected, and there is no cure for what will follow, except to end my life before I lose the only thing that separates me from them. This again is great at showing the true fear and paranoia that broke out in the Spencer mansion after the T-virus outbreak. The T-virus zombies are absolutely everywhere in Resident Evil Remake, however they are fairly easy to deal with. Just about any firearm is useful against them, even just your standard pistol can blast them away. However, sometimes they can tank a fair few bullets before dropping to the floor, so be mindful of the distance between you and the zombie. These zombies aren't just dead because you shot them a couple times and they fell to the floor. Oh no. Often zombies who have been shot and dropped to the ground can reanimate again, standing back up to continue their pursuit of you. That T-virus really is relentless, huh? And even when zombies do stay on the ground for a good period of time, they're still not fully dead, and trust me, you're gonna want to deal with them properly. To truly rid yourself of having to deal with these zombies, and their much worse counterparts which I'll get into later, you need to either A, decapitate them via a lucky pistol critical shot, or by using the shotgun at close range to blow their brain apart. Or option B, you need to light their corpse on fire using a lighter and kerosene to permanently rid yourself of them. Despite their slow, unthreatening nature, don't underestimate these zombies, as you can get cornered pretty easily by them, and more often than not, you'll have to wiggle your way out of their grasp to escape. And aside from their in-game threat, there is a certain psychological aspect to these monsters that I like. Reading the stories left behind for how each zombie came about and how they ended up this way is great environmental storytelling and adds to each encounter with them. Or you can just ignore all that and blow their heads off, it's kinda up to you. While all the zombies behave and act the same, only really changing their appearance based on location, like the zombies in the laboratory appear in lab coats, or zombies in the graveyard appearing even more disheveled than normal. We can actually see a slightly different behaving zombie, and it's not labelled as a different enemy type either. On the edge of the Spencer mansion in the balcony, players can come across our fallen comrade Forrest Spire. We can find him dead with huge gashes in his chest, and I don't think any regular zombie did this to him. There is a positive to find in Forrest though, since next to him we find a powerful grenade launcher. Upon taking the grenade launcher and investigating the rest of the balcony, we can hear Forrest shoot back to life, now mutated by the influence of the T-virus, and he is fast. The unique thing with Forrest is not only does he run at the player really fast, but his bites actually deal more damage than normal, so we must unfortunately for good put down our former comrade. Now, when I mentioned earlier that there was only two real ways to take care of zombies, that being either decapitation or fire, you may yourself think that the zombies you put down with bullets are dead, and that may appear to be the case, but once some time has passed, those frail, weak, shambling T-virus zombies change, and you should have listened to my advice. Meet the Crimson Head. These crimson coloured creatures have razor sharp claws and are capable of running just as fast as you, meaning you can't really outrun these guys. Crimson Heads are some of the strongest foes you can face in the Spencer mansion. Their speed and aggression are also backed by a really sturdy body, capable of taking a good amount of damage before going down for good. The best way to deal with these creatures if you must face one, and avoiding one isn't an option, is to use higher power weapons if you have them available. Shotguns, grenade launchers, hell even the Magnum if you have it, are viable to use against these things. What you shouldn't use though is the pistol, due to how low its stopping power is. And what's unique with these enemies is you only really have to fight one, and you only by default encounter two in the whole game. Any other Crimson Head that you face are all because of how you chose to play the game. By forgetting to burn those zombie bodies, you punish yourself later. Unlike their standard counterparts, Crimson Heads make a much louder and aggressive sound. Even on just a sound design front, they sound meaner and stronger. Aside from the standard Crimson Heads, which are already walking breathing tanks, we can actually encounter an even stronger version of the Crimson Head. After completing the 4-mask puzzle in the basement of the backyard cemetery, a coffin that's suspended in the air is suddenly dropped. Out emerges the very first Crimson Head, also known as the Elder or Crimson Head Prototype 1. Its time in isolation has caused it to undergo further mutation, as this monster is much stronger than its counterparts, and can sustain a lot more damage before it's well and truly dead. Thankfully for us however, this is a once per playthrough encounter, so we won't have to face any more of these things again. And much later in the game, in the laboratory, we can actually find a research file which details the origins of the first Crimson Head, titled V-Act. The file reveals that the original name for Crimson Heads was V-Ax, and after the death of 4 Umbrella researchers, they knew this creature was too powerful for its own good. With termination not an option, the Umbrella staff decided to seal away this creature in the coffin, hoping no one would ever dare wake it again. Well, that's until we come along. Like I mentioned in the intro, it wasn't only humans who were experimented on with the T-virus. Umbrella also used a whole roster of different animals to see what kind of effects the virus could have on them. And the most successful and most common infected animal you'll come across in your time in the Spencer mansion is the MA39 Cerberus, otherwise known as zombie dogs. Its name derives from the mythological guardian of Hades. The dogs chosen for this experiment being primarily Dobermans, due to their traits favouring military service. These mutated dogs have many similarities to standard human zombies. Their flesh appears to be rotten with parts of their skeleton exposed, and their eyes are dead. They also have an immense lust for blood. And these puppies are seriously not messing around. They're very quick on their feet and will lunge at the player's hands and arms, even fully throwing their whole weight against the player, knocking them to the ground. And Cerberus is a really intelligent creature, as they will adapt their fighting style to the current situation. In one-on-one encounters, they opt to rapidly run in circles and occasionally attack their foe to confuse them. However, when they're in groups, they take turns attacking, so the enemy that they're facing is constantly being overwhelmed. We find several instances in which we encounter these dogs. The outskirts of Spencer Mansion are running rampant with them. They also initially at the very start of the game, chase stars into the Spencer Mansion in the first place. And if you wanted to try lead the Spencer Mansion out the front door, you got another thing coming. The Cerberus are also mentioned in the Keeper's diary, with the researcher that wrote that journal noting that he was in charge of looking after the dogs, and after he mistreats them, he finds that they have escaped their cages, and presumably these are the dogs that later attack stars. Now, how can you properly deal with a small but fast 80 kg bullet with teeth? Well, your standard issue pistol shall keep you safe from a distance. However, when they get up close, your pistol might not be enough to withhold them from pouncing on you, so you better swap to something stronger like your shotgun in order to blow them away quickly. Moving aside from some of Umbrella's major experiments, there are many minor animals and insects we see who have also been affected by the T-virus. You can find wasps in certain locations in the mansion. These wasps who have been infected with the T-virus are now over 4 times their regular size, and they also feature a very potent poison. But honestly, you're best off just running away from these things and not bothering to waste any ammo on them. Also, speaking of poison, in various parts in the back of the mansion, we can encounter small snakes. These little pests aren't worth your ammunition either, although they can quickly put a halt to whatever you're doing with their venomous bite. You can also encounter many infected crows who are larger than the average and more aggressive due to the T-virus in their blood. However, these crows won't attack you unless they feel threatened, so you're best off not disturbing them and just passing through. If you must fight them, however, use your pistol. Speaking of those small snakes, an Umbrella researcher one day decided to grab one and see how the snake would react to the T-virus, and while this caused the snake to grow to a massive scale, just over 40 meters in length, while also retaining its predator-like hunting instincts. This makes this large snake, also known as Yawn, a formidable BOW. The T-virus did not only make the snake grow, but it then started to develop amphibian characteristics, with mucus secretion covering their skin to aid in injury recovery, as opposed to having regular dry rough skin. However, the T-virus also negatively affected Yawn. Its size and length did not mutate and grow at the same rate. This led to its body becoming covered with various sores and tumours. In terms of its combat abilities, Yawn is fast and vicious. It has a powerful bite that unleashes a venom so toxic, if poisoned with it, the normal cure for poison, blue herbs, won't do anything for you. Instead, you're going to need a special antidote item. Yawn retains the snake characteristic to consume its prey whole, which now, with its large size, allows Yawn to swallow humans in one go. So yeah, Yawn is a pretty formidable bioweapon. But how can you actually fight against this thing? Well, due to its sheer size, small arms are no good against it, so put that pistol away. My recommendations is the shotgun or grenade launcher. I also always try to stay moving as to not get hit, so pop shots with your shotgun while keeping a safe distance. And I'm sure you're going to be just fine. Although, I can't say the same for our poor Richard. You will not only encounter Yawn once, but twice, and the same strategy goes for your second meeting with him. Keep moving and shooting, and eventually this oversized snake will go down for good. Now we come to my favourite creature in the whole Resident Evil franchise, the deadly and fierce reptile known as the MA-121 Hunter. And unlike the last creature I went over, the Hunter is a strange half-human, half-reptile T-virus mix. In order to create a Hunter, Umbrella injected reptilian DNA into a human embryo, and then administered the T-virus as a bonding agent. These creatures were created to be pure killing machines. Zombies were slow and lacked the intelligence needed for real combat, so the Hunters were developed to replace them in military applications. However, animals infected by the T-virus would lose a lot of their intelligence, making them impossible to control. Dr. William Birkin, however, tried to fix this issue by infecting human embryos with a T-virus sample and splicing in reptilian genes after. The most promising mutant, a female, was subsequently cloned to create a species of identical mutants. A Hunter clone could be fully grown in about a year's time with the use of growth hormones, and its intelligence was similar to that of an orangutan, allowing for it to recognize about 10 different commands taught by trainers. Not only this, but it was also a walking tank, as its skin in its transformations had hardened and formed its own natural armour. The Hunters themselves are an extremely powerful creature, with claws on all 4 limbs and the ability to jump several meters in the air. They attack the player by either swiping at your legs or jumping and slashing at your torso, and if they manage to jump over your head, they can even decapitate it clean off its shoulders. They're seriously some of the most deadly creatures in this game, maybe even stronger than that of Crimson Heads. The best way to combat these beasts is use your strong firearms. Using the grenade launcher where any rounds is viable, as well as using the shotgun and magnum, makes your chances of survival strong. We can also see some first-hand accounts from Umbrella researchers, and how they describe the Hunter. In the Keeper's diary, the author describes a new creature he's been tasked with looking after as a gorilla without skin, which is pretty accurate, I'd say, to the Hunters. These are by far the most hostile enemy in the game, and late into your playthrough, they're going to replace zombies as common enemies in the mansion. Seriously, these Hunters take over, and they're seen in nearly every room you need to go through. And if you don't see them in the room initially, they're not short of bursting through any nearby windows. And something I also like here is the sheer destruction they leave in their path. Like the name would suggest, Hunters, hunt. Upon your first encounter with one, we can see through their eyes as they rapidly stalk us. Seeing just how fast these things can bounce from location to location is honestly scary, and there's no better name for them. Even down to just their audio design, their growls and cries can often be heard before you see them. And the next thing you're going to be met with after these cries is their claws flying towards your face. The reason the Hunters were let loose into the Spencer mansion in the first place is because Albert Wesker planned to unleash them on STARS. He wanted to record the encounters so that he knew how STARS would handle these threats. However, his plans failed. If you have arachnophobia, I suggest you look away for this portion of the video, because I'm now going to introduce you to the web spinner, and it's exactly as you expect, a spider that's been injected with the T-virus. This caused these spiders to grow close to 4 feet and weigh 80 pounds. These spiders can also allegedly reach speeds of 24 miles per hour. These creatures, despite their huge size, are still able to climb walls. However, even though it's in the name, these spiders have lost the ability to properly spin webs. They have also become even more venomous, with just one bite from one of these creepy crawlies can have the average human dead in minutes. They can also even spit their poison at you from afar, so you gotta stay on your toes against these creatures. Not only can the web spinner inflict its poison offensively, but if its abdomen was ruptured in a fight, this causes venom to spray everywhere as a kind of last ditch attack. The reason Umbrella decided to experiment with spiders was due to their potential military application. Umbrella researchers planned to deploy web spinners into war zones and use its venom to injure combatants before eating them. However, their limited intelligence and less than ideal strength made Umbrella cancel any further development of the web spinner project. During the web spinner project, one spider in particular had a severe reaction to the T-virus, growing roughly 6 times larger than the standard web spinner. This gave birth to the black tiger, a spider of gigantic proportions. It also, through mutation, regained its ability to spin webs, and with the T-virus outbreak occurring in the Spencer Mansion, there was no one to maintain the spider population. So in the caverns of the Spencer Mansion's courtyard, the black tiger set its nest for itself and the other web spinners. Now that we know that there is big and even bigger spiders, how do you deal with them? Well, the shotgun is going to be your best friend against these guys. Make sure you keep your distance and always stay on the move, and remember to have a blue herb on you just in case. Plant 42 is a really unique experiment that was conducted by Umbrella. This monstrosity was created by injecting the T-virus into plants, but this specific plant began to grow like no others. It buried its roots deep beneath the wooden concrete of the residence and became one with the building. Its roots spread all over the building. Its influence can be seen from many parts as we explore the residence. Plant 42, unlike normal plants, feeds on human blood, and after its experiment went wrong, many Umbrella researchers were killed and consumed by it. We can even see in a section of the residence, Plant 42 will spread its vines through the cracks in the floor to try to grab the player, obviously hoping to get an easy snack. And Plant 42 will continue to grow after it buried its roots in the aqua ring in the residence basement, which at this point was flooded with chemical-rich water. We can even see a similar case, to a lesser extent, all the way back in the Spencer Mansion. Although it's not directly connected, we found a smaller but similarly mutated plant in the greenhouse, although a bag of herbicide takes care of that. So, the main attraction, Plant 42, how the hell do you take care of this thing? Well, there are actually 2 ways to go about it. The smart way and the dumb and loud way. Players can use their chemical mixing knowledge and try to create the V-Jolt, a careful mix of various chemicals which when administered to its roots causes the plant to shrivel up and weaken, with Barry coming in to finish the job. However, be careful when creating V-Jolt, since one wrong chemical combination could lead to disaster. And if you don't want to bother with creating V-Jolt, players can just simply run in headfirst and blow this plant away with their guns. The name of the game here is to keep on moving. Using large firearms like the shotgun and grenade launcher will be your friend here, and make sure you dodge its long vines as they deal heavy damage. Plant 42 can also spray acid from its tentacles to damage the player, so watch out for that also. Alongside the Cerberus project, Umbrella's animal research also took place underwater, with the FI-03 Neptune project, which involved the T-virus being injected into a great white shark, which was then named after the Roman god of the sea. The great white sharks did not react well to the T-virus, with little significant change or mutations occurring. Their natural predator instincts never changed, nor did their fighting style, and they were still ultimately useless out of war, which Umbrella had tried to change. Ultimately, the project was deemed as a failure by Umbrella, and was discontinued to prioritise other stuff. In the aqua ring in the basement of the residence, we can encounter Neptune and her 2 pups. They have taken control of the aqua ring since it was accidentally flooded during the panic of the outbreak. They circle and swim all around the aqua ring, and this isn't a fight you can take head on since you're in their territory. While you can shoot at the smaller sharks, shooting the mother does little to none. Instead, to take out these sharks, players must drain the water from the aqua ring. Even though you starve these sharks of water, this is still not enough to take down Mother Neptune, as she still has some life left in her. To solve that, players can push a generator into the last bit of remaining water to finish her off for good. The term Chimera is used when an organism consists of 2 or more different genetic tissues. This creature is the combination of both human and fly DNA, resulting in a deadly monster of grotesque appearance. However, it's severely lacking in intelligence. The Chimera was developed due to the failure of the web spinner bioweapon, and this led to probably Umbrella's most disturbing experiment yet. Allegedly, homeless women were abducted by Umbrella agents and forcibly impregnated with modified embryos. During this process, Umbrella tried a variety of insect-human hybrids and settled on a human-fly hybrid mix. This mix would continue to be studied, however there were many flaws with its design, which led to the program eventually being shut down, and thus the official version of the Chimera was never created. We can encounter many of these ugly monsters in the underground laboratory towards the end of the game, and they're a tricky one to deal with. These creatures like to hang around in small dark places such as air ducts and vents. This means they will not be immediately visible when entering a location. However, they will then pounce into the room when you pass by. While being a mix of human and simple fly DNA, they are very hostile and aggressive and strong. My best advice to deal with this is to use the magnum you hopefully snagged earlier in the game, and use most of your saved up ammo to blast these creatures into pieces. The story of Lisa Trevor is Resident Evil Remake's most well-known and disturbing story. Lisa Trevor, daughter to George Trevor, the architect who built the Spencer Mansion, was kidnapped along with her mother Jessica Trevor. They were harshly experimented on, being first abducted in 1967. Umbrella experimented on Lisa to test the limits of the progenitor virus in humans, hoping to find a foundation for stable BOWs in the future. Lisa survived everything they did to her, becoming a prototype for bioweapons, but also becoming a monster they couldn't kill or control. Her mother Jessica didn't have the same fate and died quickly after being injected with a progenitor strain. Lisa started to show signs of superhuman strength and regenerative abilities, though at the cost of her sanity. Over time, Lisa became mentally unstable and obsessed with her deceased mother. She then started to believe other women had stolen her mother's face, leading to her attempting to remove other people's faces and collect them for her mother, which she would then attach to herself to keep safe, which causes her to appear as she does. Lisa then became a burden to Umbrella, which led to her execution order. After nearly 30 years of inhumane torture, Umbrella had had their fill and were done with her. However, after she was thought to be dead, her regenerative abilities kept her alive. After this, Lisa would wind up in the caverns below the Spencer mansion, as well as living in a shack nearby. We can also find many notes that show the perspective from each member of the family, which is some horrifying environmental storytelling. Players can encounter Lisa a few times, but honestly, there is no point in facing her head on. Her decades worth of experimentation have led to her being almost indestructible, and make sure you avoid her attacks. Her immense strength can kill the player in just a few smacks. Treat her as the most dangerous enemy you encounter. While you can use your strong firepower to knock Lisa down, this is only temporarily. In a gameplay sense, think of Lisa like an earlier more limited stalker enemy, kinda like Mr. X. In the final confrontation against Lisa, we don't even fight her properly. Instead, the goal here is this: we must move 4 stone pillars, which reveals Lisa's mother's corpse. At last reunited with her beloved mother, Lisa dives off the platform we are standing on, ready to accept her death, with her mother's skull in hand. And ultimately, Lisa will be killed in the explosion of the Spencer mansion, fitting that the place that initially took her life from her will be where she stays forever. Weighing in at over 500 pounds and standing over 8 feet tall, the world's most powerful biological weapon stands. The Tyrant has the build of a large man, with a cluster of claws on its left forearm instead of a hand. You can also notice its heart is located outside of its body on its chest. Strangely, this still doesn't make it vulnerable to attacks. The T-002 Tyrant was Umbrella's ultimate goal, the ultimate life form, set to replace soldiers on the battlefield. Tyrants had almost the same level of intelligence of a human pre-T virus infection, making them able to follow all sorts of commands and orders. And this was Umbrella's real first crack at creating something that had no downsides. No lack of intelligence like the Chimera or standard zombies, and it wasn't weak like the web spinners. This base Tyrant would go on to assist in the creation of Mr. X and Nemesis. Players can come face to face with this beast at the end of the game, with Albert Wesker unleashing the Tyrant upon us, to which the Tyrant thanks Wesker in a kind way.
What? Premature.
We are then forced into a stare down alone against this towering monster. And as long as you keep your distance and use some real high powered guns like the Magnum, you should be fine putting this thing down. However, putting the Tyrant down isn't the last time you'll see it. Oh no, since it shows up one more time for this game's very final act. The Tyrant can deal immense damage, sending the player flying through the air with a single smack. And there isn't any weapon in the player's arsenal that can take this monster down. Not until Brad drops a heavy duty rocket launcher from his helicopter, that is. One rocket straight to the chest is enough to leave the Tyrant as just a pair of legs, which allows us to finally escape the Spencer mansion once and for all. We can now leave the Spencer mansion behind us. We breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that we don't have to face any more of Umbrella's nasty creations. For now. To say Umbrella conducted some insane experiments is an understatement. The Umbrella Corporation committed such heinous acts that were mostly wiped away, only really known and uncovered by Jill, Chris, Barry and Rebecca. And aside from those few survivors, all of the data, records, logs and experiments will be lost in the explosion of the mansion. While many Umbrella researchers did yes get some form of karma, whether it be the T-virus infecting them or being killed by their own creations, there was still never any true justice to those unfortunate enough to wind up in the hands of Umbrella. On the surface, Resident Evil Remake's story is pretty standard, but as I researched deeper and deeper for this video, I found a lot of disturbing info on what really happened in the Spencer mansion, and I hope this video did a great job at explaining the origins of every single creature in the game. Even still, the likes of Lisa Trevor can definitely have a whole video on just her and her family, so if that's something you'd want to see next, let me know down below. I was already previously asked to do a video on Lisa Trevor, so I will most likely make it regardless down the line, since I just absolutely adore this game. Anyways, I've been talking long enough, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so very much for watching it, and I will see you in my next one. Peace.